Introduced by Rashay Garvel, who is Vice President of Finance for the National Black MBA Association Kentucky chapter. Welcome, Rashay.
Hello, everyone. I have the pleasure today of introducing our speakers. Sarah Davasher Wisdom has served as the President and CEO of Greater Louisville, Inc. since 2014, rising from GLI's government affairs activities as Vice President of Government Affairs to now President and Chief Executive Officer. In this role, Ms. Davasher provides strategic leadership of the organization, which consists of 36 professionals who develop and implement strategies, objectives, and policies of GLI, and was named National Chamber of the Year in 2019. Some of her accolades include the 2020 Louisville Business First Enterprising Women and the 2020 Business First National Influencers to Watch. She's held previous roles in government and public policy, including Manager of Government Affairs for Tennessee Valley Authority, Strategic Communications, Officer of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Community Development Coordinator for Congressman Lewis. She's earned a master's degree in public administration and a bachelor's degree in political science and public relations from Western Kentucky University. She's also a graduate of the Government Affairs Institute Legislative Studies program through Georgetown University and a graduate of the Institute for Organizational Management. She's the first woman to be president and CEO of Greater Louisville, Inc. Karen Williams is a Louisville native and has been a leader of the hospitality industry for over 35 years. A prosperous career that began as a sales manager position at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Atlanta. Trading the Wall Street sales calls for worldwide travel, Karen was promoted to Director of Corporate Sales, where she helped open 18 worldwide hotels under the Ritz-Carlton flag. After returning to her roots, Karen devoted the next 23 years to the Louisville Convention and Visitors Bureau in the role of Executive Vice President. While her primary role was to oversee operations of the Bureau's sales team, Karen's accomplishments reach far beyond the scope of her title. Karen's warmth and poise helped her maintain the Bureau's relationship with owners and general managers at local hotels and generate relationships with operators of other travel-related businesses. In March of 2014, Karen was named President and CEO of the LCVB and is also responsible for all administrative, operating, sales, marketing functions, including 130 full-time and part-time staff members and operating under a budget of about $18 million. She represents the city of Louisville at industry trade shows and markets the area as a premier venue for conventions, meetings, and leisure travelers. Karen's leadership role also includes serving on several boards. She currently sits on the board for Destinations Marketing Association International, Louisville Downtown Partnership, Louisville Greater Inc., Kentucky Tourism Industry Association, Scal Club International, WDRB Editorial Advisory Board, and the Greater Louisville Hotel and Lodging Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speakers.
Thank you, Rashay, and thank you, Julie. It's so good to see so many familiar faces. I always love when I get the opportunity to speak to the Rotarians. It's always been one of my treats every single year. And I wish we were in person, and I hope that we will be in person very, very soon. Let's just start with the first slide, and I have Stephanie helping me with the slides, and I'm sure she's getting to the shared, and so we'll start right here with, give us just a second, here we go. As you see here, you see our logo, and you see Lou Needs You, and I'm so happy to be here with Sarah with GLI. She and I have really kind of had somewhat of a road show over this last year and really, really working together. The collaboration of the Downtown Partnership, Greater Louisville, Louisville Forward has just been tremendous. Always has been a great partnership, but I'm sure with a lot of your businesses, this last year has really I think, intentionally made all of us work much more closer, and I see that collaboration in the future. You know, I think let's address the big elephant in the room, because every time I speak, and we'll go to the next slide, everybody always says, well, what's happened over the year? You know, we've lost a lot of business. You've seen me in a lot of media interviews, because every time we've lost something, you know, it seems to be a story. Before we get to that, I think it's important, I know some of you know, but to see how we are funded. And this is really just a graph that when I talk in a bit to show you how our funding has been dramatically cut, you'll see everyone that it affects. So you see the CVB 4.5%, that is our budget. And then you see the kick bonds, 3%. That was for the expansion and the renovation of the convention center that is now going on about 4 years old. The state lodging tax, 1%, that goes directly to the state. It's matching funds, it's marketing and programming throughout the state from all the destination marketing organizations like Louisville Tourism. 1% goes to the Kentucky Center for the Arts. I know Kim Baker really feels it when we are doing really well. And so consequently, she really feels it that we are doing really bad. And then you see the 6% that goes to the state sales tax. So when business is good, everyone really feels that uptick. On this next slide, I think it'll really demonstrate this. And I'll just tell you, you see the chart here, you see March of 19, and you see that 2 million mark and over 2 million. This is what we were bringing in monthly in that transient room tax chart that I showed you. That was monthly. So when you see some dips there, that's traditionally, it's a seasonal, but really when it goes all the way down, when you see March of 20, when COVID, you know, it seems like it was yesterday in some regards. In some regards, it seems like it was 20 years ago. We've all lived through this. But quickly in February and March, when our governor, and, you know, we were hearing it all over the United States, that business was, we had COVID and everything was shutting down. All of our convention business that we had on the books was literally being taken off the books. Everything was canceling very, very quickly. You know, in March, I think we were all sitting here. When I say we, I think our hoteliers, maybe even some of you in your own businesses, but we as hoteliers and our all of our attractions and hotels and transportation, we thought, you know what, this will be a few month thing, right? In the summer, we'll be okay. Well, then we saw the summer and it wasn't okay. And then we lived through 2020. To tell you how it really has devastated our industry, literally paralyzed it, not just Louisville, all over the world. I would say that tourism has been hit the hardest. And you think that everything that tourism encompasses, transportation, hotels, restaurants, attractions, it has just been devastated. When we were planning in 19, our 2021 budget, we were poised to be $24.9 million. So if you can think back in 19, our city was on an unbelievable growth trajectory. I mean, business was great. You know, we renovated and expanded our convention center, added 2,000 new hotel rooms. We also have 10 bourbon experiences downtown. But today, that 24.9 million, our budget is less than $9 million. That is what our budget is now. So let's go to the next slide. So I've gotten all the negative out. Here's what you can see, you know, to have that growth, how our marketing looked, our marketing and advertising. You can see in 16, 17, you really see the growth and jump in 18, 19, because as our budget grew, so did our reach and our marketing and advertising. 19, 20, we were on that trajectory to really grow that advertising again. But as we came to, you know, the first quarter of March, you know, we saw very quickly, you don't spend your money on advertising. And you see here in 20 and 21. And let me just talk about that for a moment. So, you know, when all of this was going on and a lot of people were reaching out and they were saying, you know, what is it that, what are you all doing? I used to, you know, and all of you maybe in your businesses, you all probably don't have anything to do, right? It couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, we were probably just as busy and probably busier today than we were then, but it was very different. We were trying to help our hotels, just survive. We were working with the governor's office on making sure that we were doing all the right CDC guidelines and getting our hotels up to standards and working with our convention centers, doing the right things and guidelines. We were working very closely with GLI at that time and Sarah on messaging, which you'll hear in a bit. But we were very quiet. We didn't want to be, you couldn't be marketing and advertising like come to Louisville when no one could go anywhere. And then, so we were we almost went dark to a degree. But what we were doing, because we do have travelers coming through, was really talking about the CDC guidelines, really showing the mask. I don't know if any of you saw it, but we did have some strategic mask around the city. We had one on the David in front of the 21C. We had one at on the Troll in front of the Troll Pub. So we were really just trying to show people wear masks and be safe if you did travel. On this next slide, so let's fast forward because, we've taken all that business off the books. I will say this past year when you saw that, what would have been in this city when you saw those cancellation, we took off the books $378 million worth of business that would have been in the city for that period. And I think that's important because, if you are downtown now, and I'm downtown every day, I have been throughout this, it's quiet downtown, right? I mean, and it's not just because we don't have the convention business, it's because we don't have a lot of businesses downtown. So, during that time frame, again, we were being very sensitive to how we promote and market. But I will tell you, as we got past 20 and then turned the corner into 21, and there was light at the end of the tunnel when we saw the vaccines coming. And this is, we have to rely on a lot of data. Longwoods International is one of the travel data that we use, and they have been giving travel studies to us on a wave. They call it the study wave, and this is 30. And they started this like probably in April of 20. And so this is really good news. I mean, you can't really say, we get this study and we share it with all of our hotels. But on this slide, you'll see that a very positive 81% of American travelers report they plan to travel within the next 6 months. That is great news. I will tell you, just 2 weeks ago, that number was 65%. So you see that just by the signs and people talking about vaccines, how that number will creep up. And we're delighted about that. We are booking business, some very, very little downtown and very little in our hotels. We are running about an average of 35% occupancy, Louisville and Jefferson County, which we should be running about a 65 to 70% occupancy. And you ask what that kind of business is, it's mostly that sports and kind of cheer business that we can do, some social business. Many corporations have travel bans that won't even allow their people to travel. We expect the convention business, just talking to our clients, and again, really relying on data and our client advisory council, that we see corporate and convention business coming back, I would say towards the end of the summer, third and fourth quarter of 21. That's when they're feeling that, the vaccines will be there. We see 22 looking much better. And we really see and hope that 23 will be more like that we experienced in 19. On this next slide, this was just showing, you see how many people are considering their next trip. And so this will just, again, we get this every 2 weeks and we always compare the numbers, but it just really tells you what's going on in the minds of that traveler. And I will tell you, this first wave study looked really, really bad. So we see every 2 weeks it's inching up, and this is good. This is probably more of the leisure business, and that's what we count on. I will tell you, I think Louisville is poised and will do well. And we've already seen that, because we are 1 day's drive from 60% of the population. And we do feel that people, and we hear that in the data and see it in the data, that people will want to drive, before they get on an airplane. So we really expect to do well in that drive-in business. On this next slide, Sarah's going to talk about messaging here, and you'll hear Sarah, and I've been involved in working with her and other organizations on Lou Needs You. But here's where you're seeing where people are not going to fly right away, or they're saying they're reducing their trips. They're going to stay internationally. They're going to stay in the U.S. rather than internationally. And then you'll see that they're looking at destinations that are like Louisville, that's very drivable. So this next slide is really, we'll get into where Sarah is. We have found, and we have heard, and we knew this anecdotally from the leisure business. Leisure business really over the last 5 years has changed. People want to go to authentic destinations. They want something that's different that no other destinations. And I think we are very lucky. We have the Ollie Museum, we have the Louisville Slugger, we have Churchill Downs, we have Derby Museum, and we have Bourbon, and we own those. And many other people are, they have, that's not in any other states. So we know that we have that coming. We also know that we've always been a foodie city. So Louisville's always ranked very high by the New York Times, Garden and Gun. We are a foodie city, so we know that will travel. But as we look at our messaging, our visitors coming in will come to us, but that's what they'll look at. They also, people want to support the local businesses and organizations. We've seen that. So they'll come here and they'll say, what are the local restaurants? What are the local shops? So the messaging moving forward, working with Sarah and her team, is important, because when that leisure traveler comes here, that's what they're going to be asking to do. So with that, that's a perfect segue to turn it over to my friend, Miss Sarah.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was an excellent presentation of where we've been and really a good discussion of the data. And I think now we kind of want to talk about where we're headed, because as Karen mentioned, the hope of the vaccine is really strong. So I think that most everyone on this call has some familiarity with GLI, but I'll just briefly say that GLI is the Metro Chamber of Commerce. We are focused in several areas, including economic development, workforce development and talent attraction, as well as public policy. But today, I'm here to speak to you about the work that we're doing as the voice of the business community in helping the businesses that are still struggling to recover from the economic impact of the pandemic and all that we have went through last year, as Karen described. So I believe we have a slide deck that we're going to show you. And while Christine is pulling that up, I want to give Christine Tarquinio a shout out. Christine has been working with Scopecchio on this campaign called Lou Needs You, and has really done yeoman's work. Her background is in marketing, and she's done a great job. So in partnership with a few of the organizations that Karen mentioned, GLI, Louisville Tourism, Louisville Forward, the Downtown Partnership, and Scopecchio, which has contributed the creative assets for this campaign pro bono, because Scopecchio said, we really want to support our city, tell us what we can do. So really do appreciate that contribution. But I just want to follow up on something that Karen said. Karen mentioned that these organizations were working together. I want to say that every week we would have a call. Sometimes the call was an hour, sometimes the call was 2 hours. And when it didn't seem like a lot was happening, we were talking about, okay, what are we gonna do now the capacity has shifted at restaurant venues. Now, what are we gonna do? What's the actual rule on event spaces? So there has been a ton of collaboration over the past year that didn't always appear to be public. But now it's about to be, because we have worked together on this campaign. So if we could go on to the next slide, the goal of the campaign is to get people back downtown and to adjacent areas. So this campaign will also be focused in New Lou, Butchertown, Russell, Portland, Smoketown, Clarksdale, the Highlands, and California. So this area that I just described has traditionally been known as the business corridor. And with so much of our office-based workforce still working from home because of the pandemic, the shops and the restaurants and the attractions in the area are struggling. We all know this. So many of these businesses really do rely on tourism. And as that comes back, we know that we need to rely on people who are here to really support those businesses, and then also encourage the people who are visiting to visit as well. So the slogan of the campaign is Shop, Eat, Smart. It's a very straightforward message, and we need our community to lean in and support businesses as we move forward and get back to some semblance of normal. This will largely be a digital campaign with a web page that has compiled information. And here is the screenshot of the web page. You'll see that it has a map there. It also brings together a number of resources that right now are in various different places. The website will describe the places that are open, what sort of special hours exist, what sort of capacity limitations are in place, if they have outdoor seating. Like I said, some of this already exists. It's just in different places, including the Louisville tourism site, which we have been referring to people to quite often. So the goal is to really just have a one-stop shop for everything, where people can go and find out how they can support the businesses and our culture centers as well. I mean, we have a lot of museums that are still open and need community support now more than ever. And all of this will live on louneedsyou.com. In addition, we'll be doing print promotions through media trades that we've established with print providers, and digital advertising with media partners and outdoor advertisers. So here's a billboard example of Lou Needs You. Again, the slogan is Shop, Eat, Support, and all of what I've described will live on louneedsyou.com. The final component of the campaign will focus on spreading the word. We want to make sure that everyone knows about this resource so that they can support their favorite business or try someplace new. So we'll be using social media quite a bit through GLI's talent attraction platform, which is called Live in Lou. Many of you may be familiar with Live in Lou, but for those who are not, we have a separate branding under GLI called Live in Lou. It is outward facing and really reaches out into different areas of the nation where we might be able to attract primarily degreed talent. We do have workforce efforts that are here, but Live in Lou is focused on degreed talent, and it focuses on the quality of place that we have in our community. It also includes a job board and really tries to attract candidates for those jobs and also attract people here as we look forward and know that the workforce may be increasingly remote, at least to a degree. We know that we have an opportunity to take advantage of during this pandemic. So that is Live in Lou. So Lou Needs You will live on Live in Lou. And Live in Lou has 37,000 followers. So this is a good way for us to quickly reach a number of people and really get the word out. So along with promoting the online platform, we'll be using social media to promote individual businesses. You see Wiltshire Pantry featured here. If you're familiar with the Humans of New York campaign, this campaign will follow a very similar structure where individual businesses are profiled and business owners are able to tell their story about the impacts of the pandemic. This is meant to really bring out the human element of what we're trying to accomplish here. These are people who have lived their entire lives working for their business and their livelihoods, and the pandemic has really negatively impacted that in many cases. So we want to showcase that. We want to display the resilience that we have seen all of this time throughout the pandemic. So let's get people back out and supporting the businesses. So the content will be shared on Live in Lou and GLI social media accounts, but we'll also be sharing it and encouraging our partners that we talked about earlier to share it. Downtown Partnership, Louisville Forward, Louisville Tourism. And then we will also be sharing it with other partners who might want it. You know, we had a meeting with the arts organizations a few weeks ago, and we're going to send the creative assets to them and encourage them to do the same, and maybe help provide some help for some of the venues like the museums I mentioned and other elements as well. So we think this is a good opportunity for all segments of our community to really come together in this same way. The testimonials that I just described will also live on the webpage, and we're very excited to drive more traffic downtown and to the adjacent areas so that we can all recover from the pandemic. So I hope you'll join us in supporting these businesses and in sharing these assets and eating local and really supporting our unique attractions so that we can come back stronger than ever. So thank you again for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you both, Sarah and Karen. And as the Downtown Rotary Club, we appreciate your leadership and efforts to reignite our magnificent downtown. We're absolutely with you. Rotarians, if you'd please unmute yourselves and tell who you are and ask your questions to the speakers. We also have the chat function there, so put in your question. And I'll go ahead and start with the first one. In order to attract and stimulate revitalization, would love to hear your positions about tax incentives to jumpstart the rebuild. We'll start with maybe you, Sarah, and then Karen.
Thank you for the question. We're certainly supportive of tax incentives that might start the rebuild. That's probably that's really a question that Louisville Forward would be more appropriate to answer given their role in economic development. And we, as GLI, represent a 15 county region, but I can say just broadly, I mean, we would be supportive of tax incentives that any localities in our region would offer. We also have worked with the state on various tax incentives at the state level. So we're hopeful that we will be able to see some of those materialize, but sometimes tax incentives can be a longer term initiative. And we are ready to go the race on that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Karen, anything to add to that? Or
Julie, the only thing I would add to that, and I would echo exactly what Sarah said, that's more of a Louisville Forward, but I will tell you during this time when tourism has been hit statewide and nationally, that I've really been working with my counterparts in Lexington and Northern Kentucky and all the convention bureaus, which are 28 all across the state, just to make sure that, you know, when tourism is good, everybody, you know, they see it and they love it. But when it's gone, you know, they don't realize the economic impact that it has. So we have really been talking to our legislators and to the Senate during this session to say, please keep the state tourism budget, you know, don't touch it. Don't take any of those dollars, keep us whole. Because when we do get to the other side of this, and we need to be competitive with our other states.
yes, absolutely. Todd Lanham, could you unmute and ask your question in person?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sound great.
I was just wondering what the plans were to reach out to local influencers as part of the Lou Needs You initiative, helping them kind of create a grassroots effort.
You want me to take that one, Sarah?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, Todd, and hello, everybody. Thanks for having me as a guest today. Yes, you're exactly right. We are currently looking to identify as many social media influencers all across the region, but particularly in the neighborhoods that we're focusing on, so we can partner with them to share content. The idea is that they can go out and replicate what we're doing to support their own favorite businesses. There will be a heavy component on supporting Black-owned businesses through this as well. So we're really trying to get as much community buy-in and as broad of community buy-in as we can. And I put my email in the chat. If anybody is interested, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure that we can get you connected.
I'm so glad we got to see you, and thank you for your creative work and all the hard work and many hours you've put into this. We're just all so grateful. Rick Harned, could you please ask your question in person?
Happy to. Thank you very much, Julie. Yes, I was just kind of curious as to how GLI and the Convention and Tourist Visitors Bureau are looking at the possible impacts of the new Sports and Education Center out in West Louisville. I know you're in favor of it. What do you think it can really do?
I'll tackle that first, Rick, and thank you. Well, I will tell you, we have been working very closely over the past year or more with Sadiqa and her team, because we're very, very excited about it, because track and field was something that we were really missing, that type of option, and from a sports commission. And just this past weekend, working with the sports commission, that's part of the Louisville Tourism, their offices are here. We had a track and field event there. So we see that there is a pent up need for that here in Louisville. So we see that as a tremendous asset moving forward. And we've already seen it just this past weekend. And groups like sports, they are meeting now. So to be, as I said, convention business is not. So to have that facility open and ready to go, and it looks great. If you haven't seen it, you have to take a tour. It's really, it's a beautiful building and will be a tremendous asset for us that we'll work with.
And I would just like to add that we see it as a fantastic benefit to the community. In fact, we want to be able to promote that on Live in Lieu, because again, I go back to our talent attraction initiative. It's very important for us to market outside our community, all the many assets that we have, and it offers a fantastic way to do that. So we're excited about it.
Very good. This is Angela Bailey. Angela, if you could unmute, she just says it's a fantastic initiative and we all want to support our amazing community. And if you could ask your question, Angela.
Thank you, President Julie. Yeah, my question really is out of curiosity. If other communities in Kentucky, like Lexington and Northern Kentucky and such, are doing similar initiatives, do you know?
I'll take that question, Julie, if that's okay.
Great.
I meet with the Metro Chamber of Commerce presidents for the Metro Chambers probably twice a month, and I haven't heard them mention it, but that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't one that is underway that another organization is running. So hope that answers the question.
Very good. Okay, this next one would be Roland Blanick. Can you unmute Roland?
Certainly. I was wondering what you see as the challenges of people's perceptions as to the safety of going downtown. Is that a problem?
Sarah, you want to go, and then I'll go.
Sure. Well, I would say that the answer to that question has varied over the past year at different times. And I believe that now it is less of an issue than it was last summer or last fall. I think the more people who go downtown, the less it will appear unsafe, the more people who will come back and say, oh, well, that's not as bad as it seemed like it was because they hadn't been downtown in a while. So I don't view it as a major obstacle, but I think that there are a lot of factors that are kind of swirling around to make people feel that it's an obstacle. So we have been in close collaboration with the mayor's office on this issue, and we know that there is a lot of activity happening to address the concern. And ultimately, our job is to really promote the businesses and do what we can to help get people to frequent those businesses.
Yeah, and I would say, and Roland, you actually, perception, right? It is a perception, but perception is reality. And hence when Sarah and Louisville Forward and Downtown Partnership, when we were hearing these, we have these Friends of Downtown calls about it every 2 weeks. No one's downtown. And so that in itself, feels not as good as when you're walking around and there's, 20,000 convention people or people going to a Yum Center or concert. So that's why the Live in Lieu campaign is so important and vital, getting our communication, moving forward and getting businesses bringing their people back downtown, albeit safely. I completely understand, but we do need to come back because quite honestly, we need to support our businesses that are trying to stay alive downtown. But we work very closely with LMPD in the city. And so that communication will continue moving forward.
Thank you. Jean Wessel-Savio.
Thank you, Julie. Jean West, incoming president of Rotary. Thank you both for your presentation. Question, as a Rotarian, when I travel, I always look for Rotary clubs where I'm going to be staying. So does Rotary have a role either in your campaign or in your recruitment efforts at all? We have a pretty good, significant club that I think of many of your visitors may be Rotarians and may be looking for a club.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, Jean, and thank you, good question. you know, we have had people when conventions come and they'll ask about, because Rotarians is first of all a convention that we've gone after, and it's a huge convention. But we do, when Rotarians come, we always let them know about our meetings from that aspect. And I saw someone say about Lou Needs You. Maybe Sarah, you want to address that, how Rotarians could help us with that campaign?
Absolutely. We really want everyone to share these assets. I mean, this can be shared by individuals or businesses. You can also help to highlight it by liking it, or, you know, I think Christine put something here in the chat that's kind of Greek to me, but snap a pic, tag at Live and Lou, and use hashtag Lou Needs You. So those are all the ways. I'm going to have to get better at this social media stuff. A minute ago, I tried to click on the chat and I ended up taking a picture of myself. So, but yes, please, all of you, we want you to help share these assets and help get people back out to the businesses. The timing of this, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is going to be late March. This is timed according to the vaccine rollout for the majority of people. So our expectation is that in late March, we start the campaign. Hopefully by May 1st, more and more people are downtown, because that's, again, what we expect from the vaccine rollout. And hopefully it's quicker than we are expecting, but we like to set expectations for what we think will be reality.
Rotarians, other questions, comments? Just unmute yourself, please.
This is Fred. I have one question. Can you hear me?
Sure, you sound great, Fred. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one question in terms of to Karen, in terms of the Convention Visitors Bureau. Does the bill that's pending in Congress concerning funds for state and local governments, part of the COVID package, if that comes through, is the Convention Visitors Bureau going to get any of that?
Fred, from your lips to God's ears, but no, no, not at all. We are a quasi-governmental agency, and all of our funding comes directly from that transient room tax. So the guest does that. I will tell you, we've worked, you know, really closely with the grant programs and the governor to see if there is any funds, but none of that will affect any additional dollars for Louisville tourism. But thank you for asking.
Other questions from Rotarians or comments?
Karen and Sarah, Tracy Holiday here. To your point about businesses bringing folks back downtown, the media seems to be reporting that this pandemic has been something of a grand experiment, for good or bad, about working from home. And so are there any predictions about what the business population is going to be and what businesses are going to be doing in terms of allowing people to work from home versus back in their offices downtown?
With Karen, would you like to? I'm happy to start that one.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and start it,
Yeah.
and then I'll.
The expectation, and this is data, this isn't my prediction, this is data that's national data. The expectation is that about 10% of office workers will become fully remote, and that a number of office workers will start to work 2 days a week from the office, or 3 days from home, or some variation of that. You know, this technology that we've all learned how to use over the past year has been pretty effective by and large. There are a few things that aren't ideal about it. It's not as easy to onboard staff and really establish a relationship. It's not as easy to have the same kind of culture. You have to work very intentionally to create the same kind or some type of culture in order to really work together as an organization. But the expectation is that they could look like 10%. And we have to lean into that and look for opportunities to capitalize on it. So that is why GLI has been trying to focus on talent attraction during the pandemic. We do have some strong mover data to indicate that we are benefiting from some of the people who are moving out of cities like New York. In fact, New York specifically, I believe Washington, D.C. was another one of the major cities. So through that marketing on Live in Lieu, we are trying to ensure that we get more people here. That's more tax base. You know, as a lot of companies have said, we're going fully remote. We need to reach out to those workers because they can have a much better quality of life here. It's more economical to live here. You can raise a family. We've got all these great parks. And that's really the benefit of Live in Lieu, to showcase all those things and target employees of those companies. You guys may be very familiar with this technology called geofencing. I wasn't aware of it until Christine told me about it a couple of years ago, and it kind of creeped me out. But we can basically target people on their phones and then ads pop up to them. So we're doing that with certain situations, and it's saying, come live in Lieu, and then it's showing them job opportunities targeted to them. So that's a long way of answering your question, but the reality is that we have to lean into it rather than pretending it's not going to happen.
And I would say, Tracy, and that's an excellent question, because it is really being discussed every day from a convention or visitor standpoint. This has really made people want just the opposite. You know, there is Zoom fatigue, you've heard it, and there's people, you know, how many times we're on and they're like, you're on mute, you're on mute. You just don't have that communication that we do. So we're hearing, and all of our data says, and it shows by the future business of what we're booking in 22, 23 and beyond, that conventions and associations still want to have business, B2B, you know, that is very, very important to them. I do think it'll hurt some of our corporate, because I think some corporations, just as that they may be thinking, do we need this office space? They may say from a corporate, do we need to travel as much, you know? But I do think the association business, which is really predominantly, we are high in association business, and that leisure business, people will get out and travel. That geofencing that Sarah's talking about, that is something that we've been doing for the last 4 years. It is unbelievable data, but we can tell every visitor when they're here, when they leave here, where they go, and when they come back, their spend, everything about them. So, you know, just in 2019, we had 19.4 million visitors here, and we expect that that number will go up as we get to future years. So it doesn't affect us, but, you know, a community cannot survive on, you know, businesses alone. And it cannot survive on convention business alone. It really needs a good mix of all of it to have a very thriving community downtown.
Another question?
Julie, it's Mac McClure.
Yes, please go ahead, Mac.
My thought is, for both these organizations, have you all thought about giving free memberships just as a support group for all of the different businesses that are really trying to struggle?
I'll start, or I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I will just say that we actually did that throughout the pandemic. We either deferred payments for those who requested it, and if they did not pay on time, we asked them if they wanted it. We also proactively offered a free 90-day membership so that they could see the value of GLI as we were digging into all of the unemployment insurance tools and all of the state and federal guidance in some cases, and you know, trying to answer all those questions so that they could see the advocacy work that we were doing around the CARES packages and around some of the state legislation that we're working on right now. So we had a lot of people actually sign up after seeing that membership value for 90 days. And if you know of any businesses that are interested in that, I would encourage you to tell them that we will do it again. So, you know, you can quote me. I'm saying that if you know a business that wants to be part of GLI for 90 days, please send them our way.
And we did the very same thing. Membership is just a very small percentage of our revenue coming in, and we always make it very affordable because the majority of our members are small businesses, local businesses, and that's what really makes a great city and community from a tourism standpoint. But we did a lot of deferrals because everybody needs each other at this point. So I see that, you know, I see really membership from our tourism standpoint looking differently in the future, and that is something through our strategic plan we're actually looking at and how to look and what it'll include.
Okay, any last comments or questions for this great dynamic team we've got today?
Julie,
Yes.
it's Michelle Oberst. Listen, I just wanted to say that I've known Karen Williams since she moved back to Louisville from Atlanta. We worked together. She was a mentor of mine and now a friend of mine. And I just wanted to say that I've seen what she has done for the Bureau and for the city of Louisville and how she's really put Louisville on the map in front of some of these great cities that they go up against. So I have no doubt that as our state opens back up and people are more comfortable traveling, that the business will come back and the team there at the Bureau will get the visitors and the tourism and the convention business back in Louisville. So I think we're very lucky to have had her before all of this and to help us get through this pandemic.
Thank
So I
you.
just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
President Julie,
Yes, Riggs.
I can say Karen Williams after 20 years is one of the best neighbors you could ever have. So, she was a next door neighbor and she's the best.
President Julie, I'm not sure I can say the same of Riggs. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen,
Just
I get
kidding.
that. No, I'm kidding.
And thank you, Riggs. Exactly.
Well, Karen, I was just thinking the same thing. You've been a remarkable force for our city, and we just thank you so much for your service. And we've seen that you will be retiring, which is so well deserved. And as Michelle said, just thank you so much. We know how hard you've worked and continue to do, and you've put us on the map, like she said, and people will know Louisville because of the great groundwork you've done over many decades. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And Cleo Battle, a good friend, longtime friend, will be the president and CEO starting July 1. And you couldn't be in better hands. And it has been a pleasure working with so many people, but I'm here through June 30th till the midnight. So I will keep going till then. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, just so appreciated. And then also, Sarah, what a bold leader you are to carry us forward, and just appreciate your great presentation today and all the great work you and your team are doing. We just really value GLI, and we hope you'll become a member. I'll do what Jean's been doing. We want you to join. So come back and join with us and be a part of the solution of Rotarians and unified nonprofit business and community leaders coming together. So thank you so much again for being with us. And now I'd like to let you all know, although you can't hear the applause, that everyone on the team is thanking you for your great presentation. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to give a great shout out to our Rotarian, John Walczak, director of the Louisville Zoo, as he also announced his retirement earlier this week, and so well deserved. I don't know of anyone who speaks to our club that's more beloved than John. And John, we appreciate all the service you've given Rotary as well. So we'll be seeing you more, but I just wanted to give that quick shout out for you and for your great career.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's been a labor of love and a true honor to lead your zoo. Thank you very much.
And a quick congratulations to Jeff Underhill on the opening of Colonial Gardens. Rotarians, you might recall when we were able to be together in person, we had a wonderful business networking event that was hosted at his beautiful facility, and the renovation they've done there. What a wonderful place for people to gather. So again, Jeff, congratulations. Next week, our pre-meeting will begin at 11:40, and it'll be hosted by Rotarian Stephen George, president of Louisville Public Media, also doing some remarkable things in his area as well. Immediately following at noon, James Miller and Liz Palmer with Manual High School Red Eye newspaper will present From Almost Abolished to Accolades and Awards, the story of Manual's journalism and communications magnet. So reminder, guests, stay with us for a brief What is Rotary session. Thank you everyone for being with us this week. Be well. We are adjourned.